Hello and welcome to another Stardust video. In today's video I will be explaining the Star Trek universe and why I think it should be added to the Stardust game. I am aware that they did work on a Star Trek update and gave up or discontinued it. A lot of people have mixed feelings on Star Trek ships because they are all saucers. But we have Borg cubes too! Seriously though, there's a whole plethora of factions in the Star Trek universe, but I'll be discussing the primary ones today. I will go over the Klingons, Starfleet, Romulans, Dominion, Cardassians, and the Borg. All factions have their own war doctrine, and thus, their ships are designed differently. My intention is to explain to you that they aren't all saucers, and that Star Trek in-game would be a good addition. I will start off with the most well-known, which is Starfleet. Their navy is designed to be multifunctional, acting as civilian and military aircraft at the same time. This makes for quite bulky designs with only two real weapons, phasers and photon torpedoes. Phasers act kind of like beam weapons and can be adjusted to any setting, meaning you could set the weapon to lightly graze a ship, or you could set it to a maximum setting for maximum firepower. This makes phasers quite universal, which is why in the Star Trek universe it's pretty much the only weapon system you see. Starfleet ships mostly retain the same ship design, saucer, tic-tac, with two more tic-tacs. Only the more later there's war-orientated ships in the Sovereign class start to look more cool and sleek. There's the same class used on the Enterprise E from the Star Trek movies. Starfleet ships are quite small, and I think they might need to be increased like a lot of the SPY ships, because otherwise you're going to have really powerful Starfleet ships which are like 600 meters long, which is absolutely tiny, so they might need to be like doubled in length for some of them, but other things I'll explain later might not. Secondly is the Klingon Empire. They are a warrior race, and thus their ships are designed for war. They have a whole plethora of ship classes. Some act as brawlers, while others are quick and agile. The Warbird is the most common Klingon design, and is quick and agile, but packs a bunch thanks to its heavy complement of heavy torpedoes and phaser banks. Another class, the D9 Dreadnought Battlecruiser, I know, the greatest name ever, the Dreadnought Battlecruiser. It's like saying the Destroyer Cruiser, or the my Klingon isn't very good. The Nekva class attack cruiser are more or less brawlers, massive ships with heavy weapons. Although Klingon ships, they love to use cloaking devices. In fact, most of their navy is outfitted with cloaking devices, which I feel would mix up their style of gameplay. And the abilities would make it quite interesting for Stardust. Yes, it would add a bunch of cloaking ships, which would be quite annoying for some players, but I think there's some balancing terms you could think of it. Like, you can balance cloakers quite easily. You can make them so they don't cloak that long. They have lower agility, lower speed, they drift, things like that. The developers are coming up with countless things, so that's not really much of my concern on that. The Third Empire, the Romulans, fought with other different factions in Star Trek, and thus had adapted their navy to fight them. They had ships to counter Starfleet, and ones to counter the Klingons. To sum up, as their ships got bigger, they got slower. I know, quite simple, but that's how it was. They acquired Klingon style of cruisers, i.e. quick and agile, and creating warbirds which dwarfed the Starfleet ships in comparison. Their ships were kind of a mix. They used their brawlers to counter Starfleet ships, which were more brawly, more slow, less maneuverable, and then they used their attack cruisers, which were more quick and agile, to counter the quick and agile Klingon ships. I think the Romulans are like the counter in this tech tree. They are the counter to Starfleet and the Klingons. And then they're all in like a three-way triangle, all competing with each other. And they were like that for quite a while in the Star Trek universe. The Cardassians, no, not those Cardassians. These Cardassians were a quote-unquote democratic state. I say quote-unquote because they weren't really. They had a shadow government really in power, but you don't need to hear their lore. They were mostly brawling ships, but had a powerful phaser array at the front of their ship. This was not only a sensor array, but a weapon. Their ships were designed to fire front-on towards the enemy. They were quite heavily armoured from the front, but vulnerable from the side and the rear, and they were quite slow. There's not much to them, just that they were brawlers with armour and good range. Now we get down to the big two. I call them the big two because they were, by far, the most powerful factions in the Star Trek universe. To begin, I'll discuss the Dominion. They were a large empire that encompassed a large portion of the galaxy and relied on massive battleships escorted with smaller attack craft, and maybe the odd cruiser here and there. In Star Trek, they tried to invade the portion of the galaxy that the rest of the factions were in. It took years to fight them off, and well, they were very powerful. Watch the later series of Deep Space Nine if you're interested. When I mean massive battleships, I do mean massive, at least in the Star Trek universe. Their largest was 4.8 kilometers long, armed to the teeth, with the most high-tech technology in the Star Trek universe. For brawler fans out there, this faction is for you. Lastly, the Borg. Not all ships in their navy can actually be used, since they exceed the size limit. For example, their largest, the Borg Supercube, was basically 4 normal Borg cubes duct taped together, which would make it 6 by 6 by 6 kilometers. Borg cubes in themselves are only roughly 3 by 3 by 3 kilometers. Still, they were very large and powerful. They actually didn't use shields, but rather had the OP ability to adapt to their enemy. Basically meant that if you kept using the frequency and weapon energy on a cube, it would eventually adapt, making your weapon useless. Star Wars fans, I'm sorry, but if the Borg were in the Star Wars universe, the Empire would be fucked. Doesn't matter if you have one super battle station going around killing them off, if the rest of your navy is suddenly obsolete, you're useless. Plus, it only takes a couple of drones to board the ship to assimilate it and take it over. Same thing would happen to the Death Star. But enough Star Trek versus Star Wars beef. We smart people know the winner. The Borg aren't all cubes, however. They have spheres and very odd-looking ships. Basically a brawler's dream. Star Trek don't really use carriers, as in their universe they are obsolete, since phasers can quite easily shoot them out of the sky with ease, although I'm very sure the developers are going to make that the Star Trek universe's weakness. But yeah, that is the video. I just want to explain some of my points on the Star Trek universe and whether or not it would be a good idea to add them to the game. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe. If you agree with some of my points or want to expand on what was said, feel free to discuss in the comments. Guaranteed, I'm probably going to get that one Star Wars fan who hasn't left the basement in years saying, Star Trek bad, Star Wars good, I don't want them added. But I don't really care. Not all my points in the videos need to be added, and it's more just my own thoughts and opinions. But anyway, I'll be releasing more advanced videos soon. I just wanted to take a break from them as they are mostly the same, i.e. missile ships. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.